As a church, we've been celebrating these great revelatory events of Christ's life over the last few weeks. We've celebrated the Nativity of the Lord, or Christmas, the Epiphany of the Lord in the Visitation, and the baptism of the Lord. And today, the wedding at Cana. And at one time in our long history as a church, we celebrated all of these epiphanies together on January 6th because they all have something in common. They reveal to us in a profound way that Jesus is the long-awaited Christ and Messiah. The church today has separated these major events so we can celebrate them more fully over several Sundays, but they are still clustered together because the church in her wisdom is intentionally laying out the liturgical year. Since our new liturgical year started, Jesus was foretold through the prophecies. He was anticipated during Advent. He came to us at Christmas, and he reveals himself through Magi from the east, his family, baptism, miraculous signs, and his mother. Now that the courtship is over, he wants us to marry him. He reveals himself, he wants to marry us, and it can seem a little peculiar to us that Jesus re-enters this biblical narrative and his public ministry as a 30-year-old adult at a wedding, especially when it looks like there is no bride in attendance. What we do know is that the Gospel of John is high theology, so we must read it that way, knowing in the back of our minds that everything in our gospel has a deep and spiritual meaning, but it's sometimes hard to access. Consider this. We must use all the clues the church gives us to get to the bottom of these great truths. And in this case, the clue is in our first reading from the prophet Isaiah. As we look at Isaiah, we hear the Lord speaking to us in the most incredible way. Not only will he take action against our enemies, but he also wants to marry us. Isaiah says, "As a young man marries a virgin, your builder shall marry you. And as a bridegroom rejoices in his bride, so shall your God rejoice in you." So the God of the universe wants to marry us. A marriage of heaven and earth, of God and humanity, entering into the most loving and intimate and life-giving relationship. So now we know why Jesus' first sign takes place at a wedding. Not just any wedding, our wedding. Look who's there. Mary, the mother of Jesus, Jesus, and the disciples. This is, in essence, the church. So we too are in attendance there. And as we kick off the wedding, though, there is one problem. We ran out of wine. And how can you have a wedding without wine? The wine running out is a major problem. So something must be done, or the party will come to an end. Hilaire Belloc, a famous Catholic author from 100 or so years ago, said this: "Wherever the Catholic sun doth shine, there's music and laughter and good red wine." And weddings are no exception to that. But what does this really mean? Sure, wine is an alcoholic beverage that lifts the spirits, but it's also symbolic of the divine life. The divine life that intoxicates us and raises our spirits. Mary knows this and says, "They are running out of wine." This is not about wine. It's about Israel, and for that matter, it's about us too today. The church, as we all know, is in bad shape, with attendance shrinking, and sin is on the increase. the same sin that separates us from God and the divine life. But there is hope. And how beautiful it is that Mary intervenes on our behalf by going to her son and telling him that we have no more wine. Mary, the greatest of what Israel has to offer, speaks up in a way that exceeds all the prophets. And of course, she does this for us even today as our mother. And as we continue on, Mary says the most profound words ever, as they are her last recorded words in Scripture, as she tells us, the servers, do whatever he tells you. We are the servers, and the words are intended for us today. The key to the divine life, then, is doing whatever he asks us to do. It's that simple, but it's not easy. As humans, this is a problem. We don't do whatever he asks us to do. That includes all of us, fellow sinners. So Jesus tells the server to fill 6 stone water jars to the brim. Jesus doesn't do this miracle by creating something out of nothing. He asks the servers to participate, and in many other miracles of the Bible, he does the same thing. And in a mysterious way, he asks us to participate by bringing something simple to him so he can elevate it. Jesus wants you to apply that principle to all aspects of your life so he can enhance them for the better if only you will surrender them to him and let him turn your water into wine. So you know the story at the wedding of Cana is so deep and rich that we could spend a lifetime exploring the truths found here. But I would like to point out one more thing to you in light of the fact that the church is being called to emphasize the Eucharist over the next 3 years. In a way, I find that odd. So are we supposed to stop emphasizing the Eucharist after that? Hopefully not. So one aspect of this passage is that it's the beginning of Jesus' public ministry, where he starts preparing the apostles and us here today for the Eucharist. The gospel is the first of 3 that took place at the time of or around Passover, with the ultimate goal of introducing the new Passover and the new and eternal covenant, which is the Eucharist. The Catechism of the Catholic Church says this about the wedding at Cana. The sign of water turned into wine at Cana already announces the hour of Jesus' glorification. It makes manifest the fulfillment of the wedding feast in the Father's kingdom, where the faithful will drink the new wine that has become the blood of Christ. And in John chapter 6, we are introduced to the bread of life as Christ and his body. And that would be the second one. And during the Last Supper, finally, the 2 are brought together as Jesus tells his disciples that I have eagerly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. And to do this, we are to do it in memory of him. This is what we've done for 2,000 years, and this is what we are about to do here today. Before we do, our gifts will come forward as we offer God our natural gifts, and he will return them to us, significantly elevated as his body, soul, and divinity. So, my dear brothers and sisters, let us prepare our hearts for such a gift as our bridegroom offers himself to us in this supreme sacrifice.